Hey, so if you don't mind, I would really like to talk about Sleeping Dogs today because I finally beat it. I played it after 9 or so years. It took me long enough, but I think I played it when I was ready for it. It came to me at a time where I can fully appreciate it. Well, literally, actually, because I played the definitive edition, which is already enhanced in its own ways. But then I also played it on the Series X, which came with FPS boost. So it was literally the most perfect experience I could have had with Sleeping Dogs. So I'll get a little bit into that later, but I want to talk about this game. I want to enjoy reliving it through the conversation, and I want to spoil some parts that I really liked about it. So, if you need a quick recommendation as to whether or not to play it, yes, please play it. So, yeah, first I want to start off with what I knew going in before playing the game, and that wasn't very much. It was just thinking, okay, this is GTA, obviously. It's going to be compared to GTA because it's open world, it has crime, etc. But yeah, I thought it was GTA in Hong Kong. I also didn't know how popular it was amongst the fans. I know now that it's a very beloved game by the fans. I didn't know that at the time. And a weird detail, I knew they included a fighting mechanic where you can grapple an enemy and toss them into the environment and have like an environment kill. That's really all I knew about it. This game was recommended to me by a friend. I went ahead and started it because I had it with Games with Gold. It was just sitting there unplayed, so I figured I'd install it, play it, and it was such a good decision to do that because it is one of my favorite games I played this year. 2021, yes. This 9-year-old game. I love it. I love it. I'm going through the achievements as I usually talk about, but I'm really going to try to 100% this because I love being in this city. I love being in this game. I love driving around. I feel that there is an energy in this city. I've never been to Hong Kong, but the Hong Kong that they realized in this game is so awesome. I love the streets, the bridges, I love the highways, I love the oceanside docks. I love walking through the night market and it's so alive. There's vendors, there's food markets, there's clothing stores, there's people everywhere, there's people talking. It's such a cool environment to be in. And of course the lights, the city lights, and might as well get into it a little bit now, but also the enhancements of the definitive edition and FPS boost made this game even nicer. There's a lot of beautiful just reflections and just water and rain effects, and it's a lot of little things, but it really did add to the game. But most importantly, I felt like I had no obstacles enjoying this game because of the load times. Specifically, I don't have a playthrough to compare it to, but I just know when I would go to a garage and pick out a car that in previous generation consoles and probably when the game first launched back in 2012, I'm pretty sure those were loading screens you had to wait through. I'm pretty sure every time you had to change the color of your car, you had to wait a while. I'm sure when you chose your car, you had to wait. I'm sure when you bought new clothes, bought new cars, or loaded new missions, it was a lot of waiting. And this just felt so seamless. I was always ready to jump back in and keep playing. Like, it was such a great experience. But yeah, I kind of got ahead of myself. Let me explain a little bit about what the game's about if you haven't played it like me and you need a little refresher, or if you need a refresher since you have played it but all those years ago. But yeah, you're basically playing as our main protagonist, the guy we follow, Wei Shen, and He's an undercover cop whose goal is to infiltrate the Triad in Hong Kong and dismantle them from the inside, or get as much intel as he can for the police on the inside. And as you might expect, the lines blur between police officer and a Triad member and his life of crime. They start blurring because he starts making honest and great relationships with people in the Triad. These are, this isn't black and white. This isn't just people who are evil, out for blood, and just want to do bad things. These are characters. I mean, characters in the game, but in the game, they're people. They're people with emotions. They're people with choices to make in their lives. They're people who have lived their own lives and need to make their own decisions. And Wei Shen grows attached to some of these people. You can tell by, especially Jackie. Jackie is the Triad member that first introduces you into the gang, the Sun On Yi, and they go way back. They grew up together. They went to school together. They haven't seen each other in a while, probably after their teenage years or so, if I were to guess, because a little bit of backstory on Wei Shen. He grew up in China. He had a sister. His sister was hooked on drugs, and I think if she wasn't in the gang, she had some connections to the gang, and her parents made the decision to move to the States because she wanted to separate them from that lifestyle, and sadly it didn't work for his sister. She overdosed and died, and Wei Shen lives with that on his conscience. And he spent a lot of time in the States after that. That's where he became a cop. And yeah, when he comes back, no one knows that he's a cop. When he's back in China, they purposefully plant him in a jail cell where Jackie is so that they can talk, and Jackie hooks him up with Winston, the leader of the Sun On Yi, and they can start their infiltration. And it's very interesting. It's a very interesting story in the way it plays out. So he has deep connections with Jackie. Eventually he starts winning Winston over, and they develop a good relationship too. Winston, he's not quick to just accept anybody, but he took Jackie's word for it. They needed another muscle on the team. They needed people who can rough up clients who aren't paying on time and things like that. And Wei Shen proved himself to be a good fighter and to be a good member for the Sun On Yi. But yeah, that took a little while, but eventually Winston was won over, and he really cared for Wei Shen. And yeah, there's other people. If you've played the game, you would know Mrs. Wu, I believe her name was, and Uncle Po. These are people. Mrs. Wu was Winston's mother, and Uncle Po, he's everybody's uncle. That's just his name. He's Uncle Po to everybody. If you meet him, that's Uncle Po. You call him Uncle Po. But he was a high-ranking member of the Sun On Yi. I think he was, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, he was like the head of the Sun On Yi. But yeah, so you start meeting these people, and with all that being said, you can tell Wei Shen is maybe he's getting in a little bit too deep. Maybe he's crossing a line where he shouldn't be, and he's thinking about these people more than just a mission. He's caring for them. He's dedicated to the Sun On Yi. He's a little bit too committed. And this comes up as a problem with, don't remember his name off the top of my head, but he reports to a handler. They call him his handler, and Wei Shen has to report to this guy all of his findings, all the latest updates. They always have these meetings in alleys, and usually at night. They always try to stay undercover, and he has to report to them his his latest activities and what he's been up to. And the conversation always comes up between them, where he would mention to Wei that maybe he's getting a little bit carried away. You know, he suspected this of him, that maybe he's liking being a Sun On Yee too much, and Wei's not noticing. But in my opinion, I think he really did get too involved. He really was committed to the Sun On Yee. He had a lot of loyalty, but it really was all for the benefit of the police. I think he always was with the goal in mind to take out the Sun On Yee. But I think he probably just went about it a little bit too much. But in the end, you probably can't say that because he pretty much went undetected all the way until the very end of the game, where I'm not remembering how they discovered he was a cop, but just naturally people were questioning whether or not he's a cop. You know, these are things that are like in classic shows and movies about gangs and crime. You're gonna question people's loyalties and whether or not they're ready to snitch on you, whether or not they're wired or things like that. So there's always some sort of hesitance, and there's always some sort of lack of trust when it comes to inviting new people in, and even long-term members of gangs can turn on you, is better said. So yeah, that's my opinion on the matter as to whether or not Wei Shen went too far and he was really getting more dedicated to the Sun On Yee over his duties as a police officer.
A man who never eats pork buns is never a whole man.
I want to get a little bit into what I really liked about the game. The story was obviously great, which I explained a bit about. On top of everything, like I always say, I prefer gameplay over anything. Gameplay over graphics, gameplay over story. If the game feels good, everything else could be lacking and I will still come back to this game and play it. That's not the case for Sleeping Dogs because everything was great. I enjoyed the story, I enjoyed the graphics, all that, but the way the game played was also very satisfying, so it hits all the marks that I enjoy. First and foremost, the foundation, which I believe is the foundation of this game, is the fighting mechanics. And that was so well done. It's so simple. It's pretty much your 3-button combos. You're gonna be punching, you're gonna be countering, and you're gonna be grappling. That's all they give you. So it's very easy to understand right off the bat, and it's very easy to feel like you're a competent, good fighter when you're playing as Wei Shen. Even from the beginning, if you're really paying attention and really in tune with the controls, you can theoretically never get hit. You can always be countering and dodging. It is a challenge. You're not always going to play that flawlessly, but if you wanted to, you could. The option's there because the fighting is just that good. It feels like you're fighting, like the punches really land. When you get a finishing blow on a kick or a punch, it slows down time a little bit. You feel on your controller when you punch or kick somebody. You feel which kicks are the heavy punches or the heavy kicks and which ones are the light jabs. It feels just really good, especially when you're countering somebody. If you're punching somebody in front of you and then somebody's getting ready to hit you from the back and you counter them, it feels amazing. It's like you really are a Kung Fu master. I don't know if I can emphasize enough how great the fighting is, and I was so surprised with this game because of that, because I went in again thinking this is kind of like a GTA style game, which it is, but it does this specifically along with some other things a lot better than GTA or other open world games. Like just this fighting mechanic alone keeps me coming back to this game. Like I would just go back and replay missions or go to the fight clubs just so that I can enjoy the movement of the fighting styles. So that's awesome. I'm not even talking about once you get deeper into the game, where you go to like this fighting dojo, or I think it's more like a martial arts club, and the master there, he used to teach you when you were younger, and now that you're back, he didn't recognize you at first, but when you come back and introduce yourself to him, he remembers you, he remembers teaching you as a student, and he asks you for these statues that were very valuable to him. And this is just like an in-game thing to have you searching for it around the city. And there's like 12 of these or 15 of these statues, and every time you find one and bring it back to him, he teaches you a new fighting move. So yeah, it starts off very simple, and it stays simple and relatively easy to fight, to understand the fighting controls. But if you want to get deeper, you can learn some really good and useful moves to have in your portfolio of fight styles. Yeah, you have new grapple moves. You can start breaking people's legs, snapping their arms. You can do better counters, more lethal counters. You can roll over people. You can stun people with how hard you hit them. It gets a lot more intricate as you start learning more moves. And I forgot to mention, from what I said back in the beginning, that when you grapple people, you can also toss them into these segments that they highlight for you, environmental kills that you can do. Like you can throw people into like a grinder, or throw them into a dumpster, throw them into an AC fan, and these kills are final. You know, they're kills. They're not just little in between moves that you can do. Like if you're gonna throw somebody into one of these environmental sections, they're done. You killed them. And that's also really satisfying to see the creative ways of where, like sometimes I grapple somebody and look around the room real quick just to see where I can throw them and what will happen to them. So all of those things that I just explained makes the fighting just amazing. And I haven't really experienced that before in an open world game. I remember comparing this to maybe like Arkham Asylum. That Batman game really was the first game to kind of set the standard for fighting large groups of people moving forward. And Sleeping Dogs kind of feels like that too, where you could just take on 20, 30, literally 40 people. There is a mission where you'll literally take on 40 people, and you can handle it because of the way that this mechanic is programmed. Batman really set the standard for that. A lot of games really took on that fighting playstyle. The difference is I haven't really played a game with that mechanic in this style of this open world, where again, I'll bring up GTA, and we could bring up any other open world game, but GTA is the most obvious because it's the most popular. But yeah, there's no other game in this open world setting, in this crime setting, focus on stealing cars and doing missions, where the fighting felt this good and satisfying to me. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. I think I've been going on and on about the fighting. So now you know, the fighting is good. The fighting is enjoyable. I also wanted to talk about the setting. I did speak a little bit earlier about Hong Kong and how much I liked the way it looked and how alive it felt. And I know it's not an accurate depiction of Hong Kong, but I just liked what I saw in the game. I also wanted to bring up the set pieces that they used in Sleeping Dogs and how fun it was to go through some of these missions with these settings that they chose to put us in. So, for example, the first one that comes to mind is, again, these are spoilers, we're already in spoilers, the mission where we're going to Winston's wedding, and it got invaded by I'm trying to remember their name. I think it's no, I'm sorry, I don't remember. But it's an opposing gang. It's actually a faction of the Sun On Yee, but the Sun On Yee is kind of divided. They have kind of like a civil war. So it's like that the opposing gang, but within the Sun On Yee. They invaded the wedding. They have no respect. They have no loyalty. They don't abide by the rules of the streets or the gangs. Like they don't care. They're just out for blood. So they invaded the wedding. They kill Peggy, I think her name was, Winston's wife or to-be wife, and they kill Winston himself. And in this mission, you have to go in and you're trying to save as much of them as you can. These are good people. You know, these are good people doing bad things, of course. But not everyone is evil in there. Not everyone is part of the Sun On Yee. There's family members from Peggy's side and Winston's side who's just there to enjoy a wedding. So you go there in your groomsman suit, and you're getting blood all over it. You see just like wedding tables, and you see the chandeliers, and just it's such an awesome setting to be in, to have an action scene. And it was, of course, just doubled on top of that with the emotions behind it of what's going on at the moment. It was such a memorable mission. And yeah, unfortunately you couldn't save Winston, you couldn't save Peggy, but you were able to save Uncle Po. You had to literally walk with him out of the wedding and get him in a getaway car. And yeah, that mission was really memorable. It set out just because of the setting, what you had to do, and the events that occurred. But transitioning to that, the other set piece was a mission in the hospital where, just speaking about him, Uncle Po, they have him in the hospital, and these guys, again, no respect or loyalty. They're out to get Uncle Po. They go to the hospital for the purpose of taking him out, but luckily Wei Shen gets a call. You rush on over to the hospital, and boom, there you go. You're a mission where you have a shootout in a hospital. And the lighting in this mission looks really great. Like, it's mostly dark. There's some fluorescent lights on, but most of the lights are coming from the gunfire and just the flashlights on the gun. So it just looks really cool. The last set piece that I liked is all the way at the end, when you've been captured, you've been discovered to be an undercover cop, and also I just want to say, leading up to it, one of the saddest deaths in the game, Jackie, your best friend, who you knew for a long time. Also, yeah, let's get into a little bit more. I was going to make it like a side note, but I'm going to make this the main topic that I delve into a little bit. But yeah, that set piece was just like in a construction, like a half-constructed building. It was raining, it was dark, it looked really good. But yeah, back to Jackie. He was such a great character. He was very, I wanted to say innocent, but obviously he's not. He's in a gang, he's done some bad things, but he's almost like a little puppy dog, you know? He just went along with whatever was told of him. He was loyal to Winston, he was loyal to his friends. You wouldn't expect him to be in a gang. He was just one of those kids who didn't really have a direction, and he was just generally nice to be around. And leading up to his death, when you're found out that you're an undercover cop, because that's why they kill him, they know that your connection with him is very strong. But leading up to that, he was talking about leaving the lifestyle of crime. He was done with it. You know, I think he got kidnapped, I think he was locked up, and you had to go save him. And once you were able to get him back, that's when you had that deep heart-to-heart with him, and he was explaining how he was done with his life. He wanted out. You know, he wanted more to life than just scraping by for money, doing illegal activity just to get by. Like, he finally saw, what's the point of all this? He can't keep on doing this. This isn't a long-term lifestyle. And Wei Shen, you could tell he felt that. He felt that he was right. You know, he was right. And I think he also had a reality check there too. I think that's when he was seeing that he was getting in a little bit too deep. And I think sometimes he has these moments in the game where he remembers that he's a cop and not a member of the Sun On Yee, because he he gets pretty high up there in the rankings. Like after Winston gets taken out, the power pretty much goes to him. And yeah, he just keeps on going up and up. But anyway, but yeah, that being said, once they find out that he's an undercover cop, they go for Jackie, they take him out. I'm trying to remember how you find out to meet him in an alleyway. Like you were told to meet him in an alleyway. I think Jackie tells him either he's in trouble or he just wants to talk. And then when you go to meet up, you see that he's just like hanging in the corner of an alley, and his guts are all laid out. He's like really cut up, and it was shocking. It was really shocking to see that he died. I wasn't expecting it. I thought, by that point, I thought he was gonna get out safely and leave the life of crime in the past. So that's really sad. But overall, yeah, I think I covered mostly what I liked about this game. Just the fighting, the story, the gameplay overall felt great. It's different from what I was used to. Again, I'll mention GTA one last time. I usually play GTA games. I haven't really beat any of them. I just play them just to... When I was younger, it was really just to get 5 stars and have the cops come after me and see how long I could survive. So it was different from me because I was never in a different setting outside of the United States. So that was really cool. It focused a lot on Kung Fu, martial arts, the culture of China and Hong Kong, and it was so cool. I enjoyed it so much. And just briefly, I wanted to mention, I'm not going to give a whole history on Sleeping Dogs 2, but yeah, apparently it was in the works. I was reading about it. There were some plans to continue right where you left off with Wei Shen and introduce a partner who was, I think he was also struggling with deciding whether or not, because I think he had the same mission. I think he was going to help infiltrate the Triad, because by the time this game ends, you take out your officer that's overseeing the mission, because again, another classic trope, he's corrupt. He ended up killing Uncle Po. You end up finding that out with a hospital camera recording that he injected him with some sort of I don't think it was poison, but you know, he was on his hospital bed. He injected him with some sort of medication or something that wasn't good for him, and he died in his sleep. And you caught him in the act, and it was good because this guy, he was not looking out for your benefit. He was just looking out for himself always. He was looking just to get up through the rankings in the police department, and that's it. He, like, taking out the Sun On Yee and the Triad, that's just secondary to him. He's doing that only so that he can climb the corporate ladder. And yeah, you're able to take him out with this recording. You interrogate him. You tell him that you got enough evidence to put him in jail, and that everybody knows that he killed Uncle Po. So obviously, he's not gonna be liked in there. He's not gonna last more than a day. And Wei Shen is cool with that. He's cool with putting him in there and letting the criminals decide his fate. But yeah, the sequel was gonna follow Wei Shen and his partner, and I guess they were gonna go back in to keep on taking down the Triad from the inside. Even though I don't know how it would have worked with Wei Shen now that I think about it, because he's been exposed. And the last scene even shows some of the higher ranking members of the Sun On Yee kind of like watching him from a distance from a car, and they're leaving him be. They're not bothering him. The whole energy for that scene was that he was loyal to them, even though he never told them that he was a cop, and that was a huge secret that he was hiding. He was always loyal to them. He never did anything to. He really never got any of them arrested. Oddly enough, now I'm trying to think about it, but yeah, I don't think he got any of them arrested or killed. He really was serving them like a loyal member to the Sun On Yee. He was just relaying information that he was getting to his handler, but it was never a direct him arresting them or shooting them or betraying them, which is kind of respectable in a way, oddly enough. But anyway, I'm going on about that. Basically, there was supposed to be a sequel in the works. It was going to be bigger. There is a lot of room to expand on Sleeping Dogs in the sequel. They could have included a bigger map. Or, you know what, the map, it's a decent size already, but I think they could have made it more, they could have had more places that you could visit, you know, because you could really only go to clothing stores, you could go to, what's it called, clothing stores, you can go to just like parking garages, you can go to the bar, the karaoke bar, and you can go to your to your homes, and then some homes of the people that are specifically a mission that you got to do. But besides that, it wasn't really a lot of interaction with the city that you could have done, and maybe in the sequel that's something that they could have included and focus on some more, just instead of making a bigger map, because that's what I was originally going to say, that they could just make a bigger map, you know, add more people in there. Instead of that, they could just made it more lively, more interactive, more things to do. That would have been cool. But I hope all those thoughts came out in a comprehensible way. I hope I explained the game in a way that really honors it for how good it is. So yeah, if it wasn't obvious, I would definitely recommend this game. If you haven't played it in a long time, maybe it's time to revisit it and enjoy it. You could just pick some of your favorite missions and replay them. Or yeah, if you've never played it, I highly recommend you do. Get the definitive edition, play it on a next-gen console if you can, and you'll have a good time. It was good talking.